On the night of February 4th, 2016, 35 payment orders left a computer in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Together, they asked the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to release $951 million. The orders were properly formatted. They carried valid credentials. As far as the global banking system was concerned, they were real. They were not. This was a nation-state stealing an entire country's savings, and it very nearly worked. What stopped it was one misspelled word. First, understand what was being stolen. Bangladesh Bank is the country's central bank. It holds the national foreign currency reserves. This is not a commercial bank with customers and branches. It is the account that backs an entire economy of 170 million people. Like most central banks, it keeps a large share of its dollar reserves in an account at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. That is normal. Nearly every country does it, which means the money was never physically in Bangladesh. It was a number in a ledger in Manhattan, and whoever could convincingly ask for it could move it. The asking is done over a system called SWIFT. Almost everyone has heard the name, and almost nobody knows what it is. SWIFT does not move money, it moves messages. It is a secure network that 11,000 financial institutions use to send each other instructions. When your bank sends money overseas, a SWIFT message tells the receiving bank to adjust the numbers. The money itself never travels anywhere. And here is the part that matters. SWIFT was built on the assumption that anyone with valid credentials inside a bank is authorized to speak for that bank. The attack did not begin in February. It began roughly a year earlier with an email. Several Bangladesh bank employees received messages carrying an attachment. Someone opened one. That is all it took. Malware installed itself and began doing something patient and unglamorous. It watched. It mapped the internal network. It found the machines that handled SWIFT traffic. It learned which staff used them, at what hours, and in what sequence. The attackers were not in a hurry. They spent a year learning to impersonate a routine. Then they picked a date, and the date is the most impressive part of the entire operation. The orders went out on a Thursday evening. In Bangladesh, the weekend is Friday and Saturday, so Bangladesh Bank would be closed and lightly staffed. In New York, the Fed would work Friday, then close for the American weekend. And in Manila, where the money was headed, Monday was the start of Chinese New Year. The Philippine banks would be shut. Stacked together, those three calendars created a gap of nearly 4 days in which almost nobody who could stop this would be reachable by anybody who could raise the alarm. There was still one problem, and the solution to it is the detail that separates this from ordinary cybercrime. Every time Bangladesh Bank sends or receives a SWIFT message, a printer in the office prints a physical confirmation. It is a paper trail, deliberately low-tech, so that a compromised screen cannot hide a transaction. The attackers knew about the printer, so they wrote code to break it. Their malware interfered with the software that drove that printer, so that as the orders went out, the confirmations did not print. The theft happened in silence, on paper as well as on screen. Around 8 in the evening, Dhaka time, the messages began to flow. 35 orders, requesting a total of $951 million. The instructions sent the money not to other central banks, but to private accounts in the Philippines and Sri Lanka. In New York, the Fed systems received them, checked the credentials, and found them valid. Because they were valid. The attackers were not breaking the security, they were using it. And then, something went wrong for them. In 2 separate ways, neither of which they could have planned for. By the end of it, 30 of the 35 orders would fail. The attackers had spent a year inside that network. They had timed the theft to the hour across 3 countries. They had disabled the printer, and they were about to be stopped by an automated word filter and a bank clerk who thought a name looked odd. The first failure was luck disguised as bureaucracy. Several of the fraudulent orders routed through an address on Jupiter Street in Manila. There is a shipping company that shares the name Jupiter. and that company sat on a United States sanctions list connected to Iran. The Fed's automated compliance screening does not understand context. It saw the word Jupiter in a payment instruction and flagged it. 30 orders were stopped for manual review, for reasons that had nothing whatsoever to do with the theft. Roughly $870 million stayed where it was because of a coincidence in a street name. The second failure is the one people remember. One of the transfers, $20 million, was addressed to an organization in Sri Lanka called the Shalika Foundation, except the order did not say Foundation. It said F-A-N-D-A-T-I-O-N, Fandation. A clerk at Deutsche Bank, which was acting as a routing bank, read the instruction and thought the spelling looked wrong. So they did the ordinary thing. They sent a query back to Bangladesh Bank asking for confirmation. That query, arriving alongside the Fed's own questions about the unusual volume of requests, is what finally woke somebody up. Meanwhile, in Dhaka, the weekend was ending, and nobody at Bangladesh Bank knew anything was wrong. On Saturday, staff noticed the printer was not working. This was mildly annoying, not alarming. Printers fail. They spent the day trying to fix it. When they finally got it running, the backlog began to print. And the pages that came out described $951 million leaving the country. They tried to contact the Federal Reserve. It was the weekend in New York. Nobody answered. 5 orders had already gone through. $81 million had landed at Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation in Manila. It went into 4 accounts. Those accounts had been opened 9 months earlier, in May 2015, using fake identity documents. They had been funded with $500 each and then left completely untouched, dormant for 9 months, waiting. That is not opportunism. That is infrastructure, built and left in place long before the operation began. From there, the money went into the casinos. It was converted to Philippine pesos, moved through a currency broker, and pushed into junket operations at Manila casino resorts, where it was gambled, cycled, and cashed out. This was not random. At the time, Philippine anti-money-laundering law specifically exempted casinos from reporting requirements. The attackers had chosen a destination country where the last stage of laundering was, by statute, invisible. Of the $81 million, roughly $68,000 remained in the accounts when investigators finally reached them. So who did it? Investigators found fingerprints in the code. Not literal ones. Reused fragments, distinctive functions, a particular way of wiping files. Those fragments matched malware used in the 2014 attack on Sony Pictures. And they would appear again in 2017 in the WannaCry ransomware outbreak that shut down hospitals across Britain. The United States Department of Justice ultimately charged a North Korean programmer, naming the group behind all 3, Lazarus. This was not a criminal gang, it was a state, and the money was going home to fund it. Almost none of it came back. About $15 million was recovered from a casino operator who returned it. Years of litigation followed across 3 jurisdictions. Bangladesh sued Rizal Bank in New York. Rizal denied responsibility and blamed Bangladesh's own security. The governor of Bangladesh Bank resigned. And for a country where that money represented a meaningful fraction of the national budget, the loss was not abstract. It was schools and hospitals that did not get built. The response reshaped international banking. SWIFT launched what it called the Customer Security Program, a mandatory set of controls that every member institution now has to attest to annually. Daily transfer limits were imposed. Reconciliation became continuous rather than end of day. But the deeper lesson was uncomfortable. SWIFT itself was never hacked. The encryption held. The network performed exactly as designed. The attackers simply became a legitimate user, and a system built to verify messages has no way to ask whether the person sending them should be there. Step back and look at the shape of it. A year of reconnaissance. A theft timed across 3 national calendars. Sabotaged hardware to suppress the paper trail. Accounts prepared 9 months in advance, in a jurisdiction chosen for its legal blind spot. Every part of it was patient, professional, and years in the making. And the difference between $81 million and $951 million was a coincidence about a street name and a clerk who noticed a word did not look right. The people who built this operation thought about everything that could be engineered. They did not think about spellcheck. Somewhere in the planning, across a year of work, nobody read the payment instructions one final time. And so, the most sophisticated bank robbery ever attempted was undone by the sort of error a word processor catches for free. On the night of February 4th, 2016, 35 payment orders left a computer in Dhaka.